Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BjjBrick Podcast. This is episode 230 coming out. Should be a bonus episode coming out on the first of the month. I have on the line with me Gary and Byron. How you guys doing?
We're doing awesome, Joe. Can't wait for this BjjBrick Extra episode. It's going to be a great time.
Yep, doing great. Gary just got done getting his nails done, and he's looking great. And, you know, here we are podcasting again with this extra episode this month.
Oh, you got to look pretty, Gary. You got to keep that going.
Yeah, you know, last week it was a new sweater, and this week getting my nails done. So, you know, next week I might get my toenails done if anybody can, you know, find, something that I can, get rid of the fungus with. So maybe I'll do that.
So what I want to know, though, Gary, is you've had a few outings the last few weeks, but 3 weeks ago we had a couples massage, and you haven't invited me over since.
Well, I think you know what happened there, Joe, and that's the reason I don't want to invite you back. We'll leave that private. Also, I remember it was kind of like the movie. What's the name of that movie?
Must not have been very good.
How could I not think? What's the name of that movie with John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson?
Oh, you're thinking about Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Yeah. It kind of reminded me of Pulp Fiction when Vin Rames was in the basement of the guy's pawn shop.
All right. Well, Joe, what do we have this week on this extra episode?
We have Jose Lopez, Pagan Lafont, and Shane Dupree. They're all guys that I train with pretty regular. A couple of purple belts and a brown belt, and I invited them on to talk about a position and a submission that's been working well with them, and we kind of get deep into it. So I'm excited for it, and I hope the listeners get something out of it.
Yeah, I'm sure we all will, and we're looking forward to sharing that with everybody. So a lot on the main podcast that comes out every Monday, we have a quote of the week and an article of the week. On this extra episode, we want to change things up and have fun here, and we have a tip of the week where Gary doesn't give the tip, but I'm going to give the tip this week, or this month, is how it would be said. But it's real simple, just a simple concept that I've noticed that many people don't really notice. When you're grappling with somebody and you're at the edge of the mat and you get back into the towards the mat, that's a good thing. It's safe to stay to where if they sweep you don't fall off the mat, and you don't want to end up like into the wall or into the concrete or whatever else could be hazardous material. A 2x4 with a nail sticking out of it could be next to that, which would be probably a bad idea. But one thing that some people don't notice is that you tend to move, especially if you're trying to pass the guard or someone's in the guard, you tend to generally move towards the person playing guard, towards their head. So just think of it as the person on top is kind of just pushing and you're slowly inching that direction. That being said, you can get swept back or swept to the side. But when you reset, face the person who's playing guard, face their head towards the biggest space of mat that you have. And generally speaking, you will have to reset less often. Have you guys noticed that pattern?
Well, what I have noticed is occasionally I'll go to class and it'll be a very small class, like just four of us. And we'll always be in the same 9 square feet of space. I don't know how that happens, but it does. But no, that's a good point, Byron. I hadn't thought about it too much, but yeah, oftentimes it's not a matter of space, but proper orientation, and everybody can find some room to work.
Yeah, and in a crowded space, and it's so funny that people will gravitate towards one side of the mat versus the other, and there'll be one side that's just mostly empty with all the smelly guys, and one side with all the regular students. No, space out and really use that space that's available to you, because a lot of times people, hate to say it, can get injured from somebody else falling on them. Just total accident, kind of a freak thing. But a lot of times these freak things that are accidents can be avoided by safe setup. And take a look around and think about the technique you're going to do. Maybe it involves like a pretty big movement or maybe knocking somebody over, and make sure that space is clear before you pull that off. Make it safe because anybody can get hurt in some weird thing with somebody falling on them. The person falling can get hurt. This person they can land on can get hurt. Just a bad deal. Train safe, my friends.
Yep, absolutely. that was the tip. We could give you more, but the tip should be enough for now.
That should get you by. We got to rename that segment because it's always going to go bad.
Definitely going to go bad. Well, yeah, we were talking about trying to stay safe on the mats. You know, staying safe is going to keep us healthy. And we basically have a sponsor, a Health IQ, which is a life insurance company. They're a life insurance company that has special rates for individuals who are health conscious. People who are jiu-jitsu people, runners, cyclists, weightlifters, vegans, get lower rates on their life insurance. Definitely call them up, get a quote, mention BjjBrick if you call them.
This is Byron coming in from the editing room. I just want to leave this little clip in. Gary is reading some of the notes that are with us for Health IQ, kind of helping us talk about it. And he's going to mess up the link because they give us a unique link that tells them who's sending them the traffic. And Gary just reads it as unique link instead of BjjBrick. And it's kind of funny. He did it last week, so I figured I better leave it in. These episodes are actually recorded back-to-back on the same weekend. And so he's really giving himself a hard time about this. I thought it was pretty funny. So we're leaving it in. And here goes Gary talking about the unique link. But really the easiest way is to find the link in the show notes.
Get a free quote online, healthiq.com/unique link.
Nice.
Yes, the unique link will be a BjjBrick, but we'll put a link in the show.
I said that again.
I thought you did that on purpose.
I thought so.
I didn't do it on purpose, guys.
Good job.
Yeah.
So check out the show notes. There'll be a link in there where you can check out Health IQ. Really a cool concept. It's like rewarding the people who drive safely with a better car insurance rate, rewarding people who take care of their bodies. And now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is recognized as something that people are taking care of their bodies, living longer because we do this. And we're able to do this into our older ages. That's also kind of a cool concept that if you think about it, they're sponsoring this podcast because a lot of people jiu-jitsu into their older ages. And, it's not usually the kids who are going out there looking for life insurance. It's the responsible adults. And make that responsibility a big deal. Check out the link and do their quiz.
Not the unique link.
And, check it out and let them know that we sent you. And it's a great thing to save money on. And you deserve it because you are training hard on the mats, my friends.
Yep, don't pay more than you deserve to pay. Go to healthiq.com/BjjBrick and find out about their exclusive rates that you might apply for.
Hey, I really want to mention that we have an event coming up, officially on the calendar. The big days are going to be June 23rd and June 24th. June 23rd, the BjjBrick Camp. Tim Sled, Roy Delgado are going to be teaching seminars. Going to be a blast here in Wichita, Kansas. June 24th, the BjjBrick crew takes over, and we're going to be showing lots of jiu-jitsu stuff and having a good time with you guys on the mat. Probably a lot of rolling. Not for sure what we're going to be teaching that day, but it's going to be basically as the biggest get-together we've had for the BjjBrick podcast, and looking at getting Joe in town from Houston and meeting him. This is going to be great. Also on Friday, June 22nd, tentative open mat. If you come to town earlier than the Saturday, that would be open for you, which would be cool. But it's going to be a big get-together, a lot of fun, looking at giving incentives and rewards for the out-of-town guests traveling to Wichita. We're going to be giving away some DVDs that I've reviewed and I have just sitting in my closet. Love to give those out to you guys. So out-of-town guests will have first come, first serve on that. If you're thinking about traveling, coming to this event, send us an email, bjjbrick@gmail.com. Let us know. I'll kind of put you down and see which DVD you want. And definitely a lot of giving away gi patches, stickers, whatever. I also want to say this. If you're a Patreon supporter, I don't know for sure how much the seminar costs. We're not actually technically running the seminar. Our friend here in town, it's going to be at his gym. But if you're a Patreon supporter, we're going to cover that for you, just as a thank you back to you. You guys on Patreon have really made a huge difference with the podcast. And I know that not all Patreon supporters are going to be able to make it, but if you're able to make it, know that we got you covered.
I mean, how's that? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to meeting Gary and Byron for the first time. And, man, it'd be awesome to have a dozen or more Patreon supporters there and get to meet some of our listeners and roll with y'all. And it's going to be a really good time.
Yep, and then the all-star cast on Saturday with Tim Sled and Rolly Delgado. You know, I've had 2 seminars so far from Rolly Delgado. I learned a lot. Tim Sled, I'm looking forward to learning from him. And also, congratulations to Rolly. He just won his Fight to Win match with the ankle lock, and he switched to, I don't know what he calls that grip, the cable switch grip.
I saw that.
Man, that's phenomenal, and that was fun to watch. But congratulations, Rolly.
Yep, I can't speak for Sunday, but certainly Saturday, if y'all come, you'll get smarter.
Sunday's the BjjBrick crew.
Sunday, you'll probably lose brain cells.
Our goal is to just have a blast with the people that are at the seminar, whether you're from in town or out of town. We're going to try to plan some things that are on and off the mat, a lot of fun. Eating together, having a good time, going to, I don't know what we're going to do for sure, but just planning on having a great time this weekend. What'd you say, Gary?
Pedicures.
Gary will take a small group out to get pedicures while the rest of us do something fun. But that's kind of our goal, is to just have a good time and meet you guys and to learn a lot of jiu-jitsu and to teach and share some jiu-jitsu as well. Maybe even a recording of the podcast, or probably at least some video content will get put on the YouTube page. So really excited to share that with you guys.
All right, guys, that brings us to the portion of our podcast where we do an interview. And this week it will actually be 3 interviews. We'll have on the line next Jose Lopez, a purple belt from Brazilian top team, Angleton, Texas. We'll have Pagan Lafont, who is a brown belt at LaRose Martial Arts in LaRose, Louisiana, and Shane Dupree, who is also from Southeast Louisiana, and he's a purple belt. I'm excited to have these guys on.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
In an effort to blend traditional martial arts with BJJ, he was successful in breaking 5 cinder blocks with his triangle choke. He put Frankie Valli in a triangle, and he screamed for Sherry Baby. In an effort to fight crime, he likes to check in on Facebook when he is in a bad neighborhood.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BjjBrick Podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
I have on the line with me Jose Lopez. Jose is a competitor from south of Houston, Texas, down in Lake Jackson. Jose, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing good. It's good to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Again, my name is Jose Lopez. I've been training jiu-jitsu for about 3.5 years now, almost 4 years. I got interested in jiu-jitsu while I was in the military, when I was in the Marine Corps. We did very basic jiu-jitsu, but it really interested me a lot. And then when I came back home, I found the gym and I started training. First, it was under Misael Miranda, and then Fernando Hatfield took over the gym. He's my current coach, and we're under BTT.
Okay, nice. And full disclaimer, that's where I train also when I'm home. So Jose is a teammate of mine, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, Jose, is because I noticed that after class, pretty much every time you're holding court, we'll have class, and then class will be over, and I'll see Jose out in the middle of the mat with 2 or 3 white belts and answering questions and offering advice. And I appreciate that about you. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I always feel that, a lot of times when white belts come in, and, I remember when I first started, I I was awkward. I wasn't sure what to ask. I wasn't sure what to do. You get a couple moves during the class, but you really don't get to really start kind of implementing them properly, because you need to pretty much go over and over and over the technique. And so afterwards, and when I see somebody, when I'm rolling with them and I see something they're doing over and over wrong, I won't like stop the roll in the middle of the roll, but afterwards I'll say, hey, can I show you something while we're rolling? I noticed you were doing this. Try doing this instead, because, you're going to get rolled over or you're going to put yourself in a bad position or so on. And I try to correct some of their mistakes, so that, they get better, they make me better, because every time I roll against them, they're just making me stronger by them being stronger themselves.
Yeah, that's an awesome approach. I appreciate that. So I'm doing a little show where we're going to have 3 different competitors on, and they're going to talk about 3 different positions that they like and or a submission. And so what would you like to talk about tonight, Jose?
I like to talk about the head and arm choke, the triangle. That's a submission that I wouldn't say is something I was really good at. It's just something I became good at because I was constantly in the same position over and over again. And I saw it there, and little by little, it kind of became my move in the gym, and I've completed a couple times during competitions as well. And yeah, it just because of the regularity that I was getting into certain positions, it just became a natural transition to start going for that particular position and finishing technique. So
what position were you finding yourself in that you would set this up from?
I would always find myself in half guard, either top or bottom. And when I would get on top half, I play a smashing game. So I get that arm around the head across to the other shoulder, and I pull in tight on their armpit and pull it in tight, pushing my shoulder into their jaw. And I always found that in order to create that release of pressure, my opponent would always post their forearm across my neck, across my jaw, across my face, and they would always tend to flare it up a little bit too much. And it just seemed natural. Like every single time, I would just give a quick shove with my opposite hand, with my other hand, my free hand, on their elbow, and lo and behold, there I am with my head under their elbow in a triangle position. While my leg is still in the half guard, I still found it fairly easy to finish it, even to get out of the half guard while I have that triangle in them.
Yeah, they kind of quit thinking about the half guard when they're fighting for their, to not go out. So, yeah, that's awesome. So let me back up a minute. You say your opponent has their forearm across your chin or your neck and they're pushing, and they flare too much. I guess as I'm lifting my elbow, when it gets to the point where it's 90 degrees off the mat, once I pass that point, that's when it becomes easy for you to get that arm across, right?
Yeah, it's like they're trying to create that space. They're trying to create that space so they could bridge and they could create a good frame. So they're pushing with their arm across my jaw or my face, and they tend to lift their elbow 90 degrees from their body, somewhere around 60 to 90 degrees. They get it real high, close to the 90-degree mark, and it's easy for me just to give a quick shove and dip my head under their elbow. And again, it was just something that, because of the pressure that I was creating with my shoulder, it forced them to try to relieve that pressure, because I know how it feels whenever I have somebody with good top pressure, and I don't think about anything except, trying to get that pressure off of me. And so I try to create that as I was developing my game, and I saw myself in that position over and over and over again with my opponent constantly doing that, bringing up their elbow. And at first it was a sloppy transition, but little by little I just kind of fine-tuned it and would do it real quick enough to where it caught them off guard. And I would catch them with my head under their elbow, with my hands locked in a full triangle position, but I was still in the half guard, top half.
So are you a driller? Did you drill this a lot, or did you just work on it during live training?
I just worked it a lot on live training. The things I drill the more are faster movement drills, where I got to get my body used to doing certain movements, the certain twists of the hips, where I got to kind of use momentum to do those. I drill those more. This particular movement where it's kind of like you're slowly, it's like an anaconda. I mean, it's like, you know what's going to happen, and you're just slowly just putting that pressure, and you're forcing your opponent to make mistakes. And I found that that's what I was doing during the live rolls, and it was happening more and more and more often. And again, in the gym, that's, I kind of got known for that, even though I really wasn't, looking for that to be my particular technique. It just happens that I always was in that position. And what I did start practicing, though, is a lot of times they would put me in lockdown with my leg that was trapped in, or they'd have a real tight lock on my leg with a half guard. And what I did was start trying to train or drill would be crossing my body all the way on the other side. So while my leg is locked in, my free leg, I would slide it across their belly and all the way through. So it would go all the way through, and it would seem like I'd be off balance and they could flip me over. But because I have all that pressure on their shoulder and their neck, I was just too heavy on the one side. And once I get my leg all the way through across their body, I could easily push their bottom leg with my free leg and then kick my trap leg out. And I was already in the full position to finish the triangle. My whole body was across their body, and I was ready just to lean in with my shoulder to put that pressure.
Yeah, that's awesome. It took me a minute, but I see what you're doing there. That's good. Hey, let me ask you a question. When you get it locked up a little bit, what's the one thing your opponent can do to make it difficult to finish? Or what's the one thing I can do that's going to give me a chance to escape?
The number one thing that people fail to do is they try to push me off by pushing into me. They need to roll away from me and dip their elbow straight to the ground. They just got to drop their elbow as hard as they can to the ground, back to the ground from around my head. And once they get it to the ground, it's hard to try to lift it up without losing a little bit of the grip that I have with my hands. So that's the point where I kind of have to make a decision from my standpoint, like, okay, do I want to keep on fighting this and maybe he'll lift his elbow again, or do I see that I need to just change my position and readjust and try to go for it again, or go for something else? But yeah, it's most of the time when people get out of it, it's just they just flat out, just as hard as they can, they just drop that elbow to the ground and try not to get it lifted up again.
Do they end up basically giving you the back when they do that?
Well, they're rolling away from me, but my body's across them, so it's not really giving me their back. It's like they're just laying back flat. You know what I'm saying? Because their elbow, when you put your head under their elbow, their shoulder is off the ground, and it's kind of like you got them lifted up a little bit off the ground with your head. Well, they got to dip that elbow back down to the ground and lay back flat on the ground. And that's what I found the best opportunity for them to get out.
I gotcha. So what's your usual plan when they do that? Where do you like to go next?
From there, depends on how I feel their energy level is, because it is a very taxing for them. It's a lot of pressure on their necks, a lot of pressure on their chin. I put in a lot of top pressure. They usually loosen up their legs a little bit while in that transition. So as I'm putting that pressure, even though they might have their elbow on the ground, I still have good top pressure, and I'm slowly but surely trying to get my trap leg out. And I usually just, if I'm able to get it past their hip, it's pretty much a done deal that I'm gonna pass the guard, because they just don't have any leverage. They're flat on the ground. I'm putting pressure on their neck and their arm, and they don't have any leverage to try to explode out of it. So once that knee is past their hip, I keep on crossing it over, and I put pressure on the other leg with my loose leg to kind of open up their thighs a little bit, and then I'm able to get full mount.
Nice. Okay. Yep. That's kind of an acceptable result as well. I mean, a finish is nice, but getting to mount's pretty good. Jose, I appreciate you coming on here and talking some jiu-jitsu with me. Did you have a tournament this week?
Yeah, I had a tournament on Sunday at the Houston Open. It was my first tournament as a purple belt. I just got promoted in December to purple belt. And I got second place in my division. I did pretty good, but for some reason, it usually doesn't happen, but for some reason, man, I had no energy. I got tired right away after the first match. I did 3 matches. After the first match, I was dead. And the second match, I don't even know how I wound up winning because I had no energy, probably with 3 minutes left on the match. But I was able to stay on top, keep good pressure, and finish up the round. The third match, it was, once that guy got on top of me, like I said, I had no energy, and he was pretty much putting whatever pressure he wanted on me, and I was able to survive. And at the end, I actually, funny enough, at the end, I had him in the position to finish with a triangle, and time ran out on me.
Yeah, well, that's kind of surprising that you were low energy today. I don't associate that with you.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know why. Yeah, again, I don't know why. I don't know why this particular time. That's usually not an issue with me, but yeah, it might have been the nerves. Like I said, it was my first purple belt tournament. I was a little bit more anxious than normal, but yeah, it might have been that.
Yeah, who knows? So what's next for you? You got something else you're looking at coming up?
There's a couple tournaments. I think one in March. I think it might be New Breed here in Houston. And I mean, I know we train together, so you know me. I like to compete as much as possible.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm trying to make training 4 times a week and 2 times a month, doing open mats on Saturdays, and trying to compete as much as possible. As long as my body could hold up, I want to train as much as possible. That's the only way I'm going to get better. That's the only way my teammates are going to get better. And when you're addicted to it, you know how it is.
Yep, I know how it is. Okay, Jose, hey, I really appreciate you taking time to get on here and talk some jiu-jitsu with me.
All right, thank you, Joe.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right,
bye.
Have a good one.
I have on the line with me today Pagan Lafont from Southeast Louisiana. Pagan, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How's it going, BjjBrick? I apologize ahead of time for my accent. I'll try to really not have an accent because I'm down here in Cajun territory, and to me, everybody's it's pretty easy to understand everybody down here for me. But I know for other people, they'll tell me some criticism like they can't understand me or it's very monotone. So I'll try not to do that. But I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I started in May of 2006. Had a very small gym at the time that was only ran by 2 blue belts at the time, and it was a blacklist martial arts and fitness. And from there, we had, a larger group that stuck with it throughout the years and branched off. I trained in the gym, La Rose Jiu-Jitsu, down here in La Rose, Louisiana, ran by my coach and, of course, close training partner, Buddy Kiff, who is a black belt under Tim Crater, as is the ones we originally started with, who was like a brother sister school to us, blacklist martial arts and fitness, which is Derek Brew, and he's a first degree black belt under Tim Crater now. So that's kind of who we're under. That's our head guy, Tim Crater, BjjBrick Evolution affiliate. And with that, we came up under, like I said, Derek Brew, and then American Top Team black belt now in Gabriel Barahona. So that's a little bit about where we started out. We started real small. Like I said, just built over the years, had to kind of, as our instructors are learning, they were teaching us and we were learning. So it was a pretty rough time. I think for sure now jiu-jitsu has grown to where it's not that people are like spoiled to it, but they should definitely, be grateful that there are so many black belts and legit schools out now. There's so much, YouTube and just various things, internet and social media. I mean, you can just get on Instagram and scroll through it and just see tons of little tidbits of technique. And at our time, it really wasn't that at all. So, I mean, I remember going on LockFlow. I don't know if any of you guys are old school, but LockFlow used to have, I think they ended up having little video clips maybe toward the later era of that. But they would do these little comic strip style, like 4 to 12 little pictures breaking down technique. And I mean, I remember learning off of stuff like that. So, but yeah, man, that's what it is. I've been a brown belt since November of 2016, pushing hard all the time. I train solid 5 to 7 days a week, and luckily I'm 25 years old, so I rarely get injured to where it takes me more than a few days, or even a full week, if that, to be recovered. But I train smart, always tap fast, know my limits, eat right, try to get enough sleep, lots of water. I preach the water thing all the time. I really fully believe in that, But yeah, jiu-jitsu is definitely my biggest passion, and I can go on about it all day. So where we start this, Joe?
Well, before we start, I just want to make a comment on the comic strip style instructions. I used to have a binder full of those things. I remember that. It was the only way you could learn technique besides going to class back in the day. So you're going back a few years there.
I had a cheap little binder with some of those little portfolio, I guess, style, like the plastic sheets. Yeah, and I would print them out and just stuff them in the sheets, and it was like a little portfolio for me to look through.
Yeah, I had the same thing. So before we get started with the position and technique, we're going to talk about, you mentioned you had an accent. I hope it's not a faux pas to have a coon ass on the show, but where are you located?
Larose, Louisiana, and that is about an hour southwest of New Orleans. And, I mean, we're pretty close. I mean, within a 45-minute drive, I can be on the coast of Louisiana down in Port Fourchon and Grand Isle. So, I mean, that's where a lot of our people don't even know this area, but you'll be like, hey, you have to go through it to get to Grand Isle. And people know about that because it's a big area for fishing. And we have some of the best fishing in the country down here, apparently. I've always just known it to be what it is, so I take for granted that it is what it is. But a lot of people say that it is just about the best fishing for redfish and speckled trout and whatnot.
Yeah, it's good fishing, good outdoor life. For our listeners who are trying to envision exactly where that is and what that country looks like, just think the movie Deliverance or the movie Skeleton Key, and you'll have a pretty good picture of southeast Louisiana. They're about as far south as you can get in the Gulf of Mexico, unless you go to Florida.
No hills at all where I'm at. Very flat land and a lot of marshy areas, a lot of marsh. There's some swamp more out east or west, where there'd be a lot of cypress. There is that down here, but it's really mostly marsh. It's a lot of like brackish water where saltwater and freshwater are meeting each other. So
yeah, definitely an interesting place to visit. So Pagan, I hit you up to come on and talk for a few minutes about one of your favorite positions and a technique from there. And I think you said you wanted to talk about the triangle choke from guard. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That, when I started, I was small. I was 13 years old, maybe 110, 120 pounds. I wasn't in bad shape. Like, I wasn't an overweight or really like uncoordinated kid, but I definitely wasn't like a prime athlete or anything. I played a few little sports growing up, but I was never like dedicated to any of them to have like a base of that athleticism. Which, when you have parents that are like, hey, should I put my kid in martial arts first or sports? I'm like, whatever. I don't have kids, but I would say, as a kids coach, I would say really anything that gets them physically active, whatever they find enjoyment in with it, absolutely. I mean, you can definitely be, a good, dedicated, talented little baseball, basketball, football player, whatever. And those kids definitely transfer into martial arts well from their coordination. But also the kids who start with martial arts can coordinate over well. So I started really small, as a small guy. So the reason I led to that is, being a small guy, you can about imagine where I spent most of my time the first few years of training, on my back, getting crushed, having to learn how to retain my guard, keep my guard, keep pressure on the hips, not getting bullied around. I'm on my back as a small guy. So triangles were I'd say the first submission that I really found success with in training and in competition, it wasn't like I didn't know other ones, but that was the one that always seemed to happen for me. And, you know, I didn't have like extraordinarily long legs, but I did have kind of skinny legs. And, but I think it could work for a lot of people. You know, I mean, there's different ways to do triangles, and you can use the triangle guard or, you know, the shoulder guard, to just create other options and you know, bag case, whatever. I mean, there's just so many things you can do just from having a dangerous threat from your guard, such as like a triangle choke. So I think the biggest things, you know, especially with beginning, you'll, you know, get comfortable with that closed guard idea, you know, crossing the feet. And there's nothing wrong with closed guard, but the closed guard is a safety net, in my opinion, because you can't do much. Like, what can you do from closed guard? Across collar choke? I mean, if you're like flexible enough, you think you might not have to like, well, no, I mean, you have to plant your feet on the mat to hip bump sweep. And I mean, there's really not many options from purely having your legs crossed around the person. So,
correct. It's really just a starting point, right? You start in closed guard, and at some point you've got to open your feet up a little bit to do something. So when you're in closed guard, how do you generally set up the triangle choke? Do you get a grip on a collar, or do you just take a hand and shove it through? Tell me a little bit about your setup for this.
For me, guard for me, and the way I always try to preach just to, you know, training partners who are a little less experienced, that I can help them out tips-wise, or the kids program that I'll teach. If you're in closed guard and the feet are crossed, I like to have my shoulders on the mat, but my butt off of the mat, you know, because you never want your whole back to the mat, right? Like, you don't want your hips flat, you don't want your shoulders both on the mat, you don't want your spinal on the mat. You're just getting crushed, you know. That's not a way to defend yourself or be offensive by any means. So if the guard is crossed, I certainly always want to have my weight on my shoulders and like my head, and like making them supporting my weight onto them.
So when you've got, so Pagan, hold on a minute. When you got your butt off the ground, then they're carrying the weight from your hips. You're controlling their hips, right?
Right, and to do things like the easy ways to disrupt their base, like let's say with the closed guard, how you would like kind of do almost a crunch and pull your knees to either side to break their posture and disrupt their base. It'll be easier because they're holding your weight up. It'll be easier to transfer into that and really and kind of be able to pull them and make momentum. But like I said, that's kind of a position to where it's a safety net. I can stall and catch my breath or whatever. But open guard, and the thing I always try to preach is, you know, like I said, not being flat. So I'm always going to be sitting up or really on one of my hips, but I'm always pushing and pulling. Like, I'm always making reactions. You know, I'll pull the collar and I'll push off the hip, or I'll pull the arm and I'll push off the hip, or I'll shift my hips, and I'm always threatening to make my setups. Like a triangle, sure, there are some times in the gym that I can just do a very simple grab the collar, grab the sleeve, put my foot on their hip. They go to grab my pants of the foot that's on the hip, and I'll shoot my hips up and snatch up to shoulder guard, right? But it doesn't always happen that way. You know, a lot of guys are keen to that, so I'll have to make other threats. So one that I love to do is I love to set up a scissor sweep. And when I go to scissor sweep, I'll use that to set up my shoulder guard when they'll base and defend and try to grab my leg and whatnot. You know, that's one way. I guess just I've been doing them so long, a lot of times it's not even a thought out setup. Like, I'll just start throwing out different attacks off my back, and I'll just find little holes to slap my leg into. For sure, the scissor sweep arm bar is a great one too. If you can get up to an arm bar, once they pull the arm out, bam, you know, easy thing right there. Or if you're setting up an omoplata and you go to posture from the omoplata, the shoulder guard's right there. For me though, no matter how you get there, you know, the big thing is having your legs crossed around, you know, their head and one arm, you know, having one arm in to the shoulder guard. So, you know, you clasp the feet. Always important to have the foot of the leg that is against the head. That's the one clasped down. And the one that would be next to the shoulder is the one that's on top. So when I'm there, and I'm a big advocate for if I have a gi on, I'm going to always want to use gi techniques for sure. Like, I'm not going to really go for a rear naked choke or a guillotine and a gi. I don't know why. To me, it's just like, why am I doing that? I'll say that for no gi. If I have the gi on, loop chokes and bow and arrow chokes, right? But even with the gi, I always do the same thing. My feet are crossed, and I'll reach up, and I'll double clasp the back of the head like a Muay Thai clinch. Now, as their head bends down, it creates more opening for me to lock up that triangle, and it compromises their posture. Sometimes I know a lot of people have to cut angles a lot with their triangle, so that's for sure. Grab the shin and cut towards the hip. But for the way my legs are built, and just from doing them over the years and building dexterity in my legs, I'll lock them up straight in front of the person sometimes and then cut my angle. But almost always double clasp the back of the head and pull it downward before I set up to close the triangle up and finish it.
So a lot of people think of that pulling on the back of the head as part of the finishing technique, but you use it to create more space and make a final adjustment before you go into the finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I never pull on the head to get the finish. I'm just doing that because, like, they're postured up. Like, as I clasp my shoulder guard, they're going to want to posture up and get their head kind of to the ceiling and be strong, so I can't break them down to me and clasp the foot under my knee, under the crook of my knee, so I can really finalize the triangle. So I'll reach up and I clasp the back of the head and make their chin go straight down to their chest. That'll break the posture. And it also makes the neck, kind of collapse in, so it'll be easier for me to reach up, grab my shin, and pull it covering the shoulder, and then clasp the triangle all the way.
That's golden, man. Yeah, anytime you can compromise your opponent's spinal alignment, good things happen for you. So you get to the triangle position, and you got a guy that's just thick neck, strong as hell. What's your go-to move if the triangle's not working?
But the triangle's not me up, and I do run into that. I run into that with you, Joe. You have a lot of pressure. It screws me over all the time. It's very hard for me to finish the triangle on you. So when I'm there, I'll use the shoulder guard, like that. One of my friends, Cy Landry, black belt buddy of mine, he calls it triangle guard. Maybe I've heard other people call it that as well. But as shoulder guard, right? One arm in. It's before we close the triangle up. So if I'm there, I'll have to use that as a position in itself, knowing that if I commit to closing that triangle and cutting my angle, a guy like Joe here, he starts driving hard across my torso. My legs will collapse. He's just driving so much weight through. Not only will I not lock the triangle, my guard's getting passed, and my hips are angled one way, my upper torso's the other way, and I'm getting passed with a lot of pressure, and that's not comfortable. Now I got to fight back from square one. So for me, I'll kind of stay square with them. Like, I'll stay square because I know if I'm cutting towards the angle to finish my triangle, knowing how thick his shoulders and neck are, that's going to give him that pass. That's going to give him that, that understyle pass. And so I'll stay square, and I have a few options from there. When I'm square, there's a little thing I'll do, like if their hands are clasped around, like their hands are clasped. I've got this shoulder guard, but they have their hands clasped. I'll stay square, and I'll reach between my own legs to that freed arm, reach behind their elbow, unlatch my legs as I do a big hip switch towards the side that I was locked on their shoulder, so that when I go, I'm doing an arm drag, but I'm pulling their arm against like my crotch. So what it does is it'll like collapse their arm in. So as I'm hipping out like a normal arm drag, one of their arms will be trapped between my legs. So when I take the back with that, it's like a right to a trap arm back take. But that's really tricky. I'm not always successful with that. I kind of found it a while back. But other than that, a simple one is I would time as their freed arm would be close to their torso, and I'll unlock my shoulder guard, and I'll relock my guard around their trapped arm. Now I have closed guard with one of their arms trapped. How efficient is that? I don't know if you guys ever played a position like that, but that is just, that's all you for the taking. You've got your closed guard, the comfort of the safety net of the closed guard, their arms trapped within your leg. They only have one free arm. Makes it really easy to set up collar chokes and different attacks from there.
Yeah, you're almost taking away 25% of the tools they have available to work with. So it does give you a huge advantage. And
that's like Ryan Hall breaks down on one of his DVDs. Ryan Hall, amazing DVDs, and the way he breaks down things. It's so theoretical, and it's not even technique so much as just an understanding. And what he was saying is that being on your back is looked at as like a disadvantageous position, like you have disadvantage from being on your back. But if you know how to use if you know your jiu-jitsu, you know your technique, you believe in your attacks, and you're a proactive grappler, you're making things happen off your back, you're going to be advantage. Because although you're on your back, your 2 arms and 2 legs are free. That person has to be based on their feet or on their knees, right? Let's say they're on their knees down, then your closed guard. They're basing on their 2 knees. Their legs aren't free. The only thing they have free is their 2 arms. So it's already a losing battle, because there's 2 versus your 4. If you trap one of them, we just made that 4-1.
Yeah, it's only a losing battle for them once you realize that you have all 4 limbs to work with. I see a lot of new people grappling, and they got an arm just laying there not doing anything, or a foot just laying there not doing anything. It takes a while for people to come around to the point where they're always using. I mean, your feet should either have a grip on a hip or a cut behind a knee or something. Yeah, you should have 4 points of contact always.
That's a big thing I have to get through to the kids. You'll see like some kids just catch on so naturally, and some of them are lost for a while, and I'll always tell them, I'm like, if you're not gripping, you're being gripped. So like if I'm on top of them, drilling with them, or, grappling with them, and they just put their feet on my hips, awesome. That's one of the things I tell you. Fantastic. Your feet on hips. Where's your hands? If you're not gripping me, I'm going to blow by you. And like I always try to get that through. And like you say, to just, adults too training. I'm like, you always doing, nothing's just ever just there, like why would you not use, and especially with the gi, you'll see these new guys with the gi, they'll try to grab your wrist or grab the back of your neck. And I'm like, no, you have a gi on. Grip my sleeve, grip that gi. Like usually you have, and always make grip. Just having good grips will disrupt somebody so much. There's one way that I'll grab a cross collar grip with my left hand. That's what I'm always working on my right hip for the most part, off my back. And when I grab it, I'll grab it like a chin-up grip. Like there's no bend in my wrist when it's against their neck. And when I grab it, I'm not dead squeezing, white knuckling, but I've just, I've conditioned my grips to where I'll grab it and I'll hold that grip for pretty much as long as I want. Now, people do break it, but to break that grip, they are going through hell to break it off, and that just creates more openings for me. So something as simple as a grip can shut down so much, and create so much. I mean, you gotta have good grips.
Absolutely. Hey, let's wrap up this about the triangle choke real quick with a defense for it. If you're going for a triangle choke on me or anybody, what's the one thing they can do to make it really hard for you?
Well, this is when it comes to triangles, this is a general note I always like to keep in mind or tell people is if the person locks the triangle and their feet are just crossed, just their feet, shoulder guard, posture. The feet are crossed, posture. If they have the triangle all the way locked in, that's when you stack. You're not going to have the triangle all the way locked in and try to posture up and try to support all of that weight, clamp down your neck, while that also helps your arm get straightened out. I finished a lot of, rounds in the gym and a couple matches in tournaments from people posturing up with the locked triangle, exposed that arm. But at the same time, if their feet are just crossed and you stack, now you're giving them the closure, the space closing they need to lock up the triangle.
Yeah, you just did half the work for them. Exactly.
So if it's locked and you're stacking, big thing, pressure. Don't roll their knees beyond, stack their knees beyond their head. That'll make it easy for them to do a back roll and land and mount on you. What you need to do is you need to put their knees to their face and just create uncomfortable position. And that's what I tell people when I'm trying them, and they're like, why you keep tagging me with this? I'm stacking. And I'm like, you're not stacking enough. You make me uncomfortable. You have to make me miserable. Put my knees to my face and just make enough space to keep that blood flowing and keep yourself surviving, and just keep working. Keep cutting towards that side. Keep walking your hips towards the side, smashing them. There's also the defense where people will hug the side and just kind of flop to the side and work. I haven't gotten that one down yet. I just do the regular old stack the life out of them and keep cutting towards the side of my freed arm while reaching across like their far shoulder or lapel and kind of driving the forearm. I'm not using the forearm choke, but I'll use the forearm to make them uncomfortable as I'm cutting towards that sock to stag them.
All right, that's perfect. So, hey, guys, this has been some good stuff, both from the offensive standpoint and also from the defensive standpoint. So, hey, Pagan, I appreciate you coming on with us.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me. Thanks, BjjBrick.
All right, awesome. We'll talk to you later. All right, I'd like to welcome Shane Dupree to the BjjBrick Podcast. Shane, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. What about y'all?
Oh, I'm doing good. We're recording this in person, so Shane and I just got off the mats about an hour ago, had class tonight. Shane, how was it for you?
Man, it's always a good time, you know. I've never been in a training session where I left and I was unhappy with myself.
Nice. And we had a promotion in class tonight, huh?
Yes, we did. You know, we promoted some redneck to blue belt, and it was well deserved.
Yep, Delta Bar. I like being in class when we have promotions. So, Buddy Kiff and LaRose has one more blue belt. So, congratulations to Brad. Shane, tell us a little bit about your martial arts background.
Well, man, I've been doing martial arts pretty much my whole life. Started Taekwondo at 4 years old, progressed into some kickboxing and you know, some other traditional arts that were in the area at the time of me growing up. But around 19, I started my own Taekwondo school in town because my coach just couldn't keep his open anymore. So I went ahead and done that. And funny story is when I was about 22, I was kind of falling in love out of love with martial arts all together. You know, I didn't see the realistic approach to some things, even though we were taught very like hardcore old school Taekwondo. I kind of just started to fall in love with it. I was finding reasons not to go. And man, once it gets to that point in your life where you're like, oh man, I don't want to go there. I mean, what's the point, you know? Just like jobs. Why would you go to a job you don't want to do? So, and it just so happened, buddy I was working with was good friends with Buddy Kiff, and he's like, hey man, yeah, I'm going to check out this jiu-jitsu thing. And then I'm like, nah man, I'm good, I do Taekwondo and you know this and that. And he started choking me out at work. He would just come behind me and like put me in rear naked chokes. I'm like, dude, I will go to your class and armbar you. I know what jiu-jitsu is. I follow this. And sure enough, I went on board the shit out of him. Then I never left. I stayed there. And once
Buddy was a blue belt at the time?
Yes, Buddy was a blue belt. So. And we had 2 mats. And it was like the puzzle mat type rollout deals, whatever it was. And I mean, we were upstairs. And it's funny because we were actually upstairs and the Taekwondo school was downstairs. And that teacher was part of my Taekwondo organization. And I hadn't quit Taekwondo yet, you know. And when this guy saw that I was doing jiu-jitsu, of course, you know, he showed other teachers. Next thing, I'm getting kicked out because I wanted to progress as a martial artist. And I mean, that whole scene, man, like, they called me in a room, 4 guys. I mean, like old school kung fu type movie, you know. And like, you know, for like 10 minutes, I defended myself. And then I just got to a point, I'm like, man, what are these dudes telling me I can't, like, you know, progress?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, think of the term martial arts. You know, no one says martial art. You know what I mean? It's plural. And then I just asked him one simple question. I'm like, man, did your kid ask you permission before he went to college? You know, I mean, come on. If he wants to hire, learn, what's the point of this? And, you know, I told those guys within 5 years, your organization is no longer going to exist because this is what it's going to. You know, you need to learn how to be open-minded. And it's so funny because we were all under Dr. Lee. And Dr. Lee had a judo black belt. He had a Hapkido black belt, a this black belt, all this stuff. And we learned all these things. But they taught him in such I don't know even how to explain it, just not realistic fashion. You know, right. Some of this stuff would never work. And then once it started going to the whole Olympic style sparring and everything, I didn't see the purpose of it anymore. So it was time for me to depart anyway. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm not sour about the situation. I look back, you know, still to this day, I'm able to help these people get ready for the cage at, you know, our local gyms and this and that. I mean, my kicking's still great. I keep sharp on it. I mean, that's something that you can never take away. But I needed to progress in my whole ordeal.
Yeah, I don't ever badmouth any martial arts. They've all got their value, but there comes a point in time where you are looking for something a little more reality based.
Yes, definitely.
And jiu-jitsu definitely meets that criteria. So, Shane, I got you on the podcast tonight to talk about a position, submission technique that has been working well for you. And I think you wanted to talk about transitioning from closed guard to open guard with your feet on the hips to a loop choke variation. Is that correct?
Yes. Something I kind of picked up from watching the Hydra Gracie channel. Subscribe to it. It's well worth the money. I mean, it's like $20 a month. But I mean, think about how many times you get on YouTube and like you just scroll and you're looking at all these things. It's like, I don't know if that works.
Right.
But I can guarantee you this: when you follow somebody like that dude, it's going to work.
Sure.
No matter
absolutely.
what your body type is. And I am a medium to large fellow. Never the biggest guy on the mat, but I'm never the smallest. My whole game has been a defensive game ever since it started. Nothing wrong with a very offensive game or anything else, but that's just what my body type took me to. And this particular move really caught my eyes. A lot of times I find myself in a situation where I'm being pressured and I may have to go to a closed guard situation to get a guy off of me for a second to let me, breathe and think about what I need to do. But a lot of times you're in that closed guard, and if you got a guy that's really good, he's pressuring you, it's kind of hard to get out of that. And you almost have to give up that closed guard and let them go to, you side control the pass. Then make a move sometimes because you can't make an offensive move at that point. So, this caught my eye. So I start off, I grab their hands, just put them to the mat. Or if their sleeve, whatever I got to do to move, make their hands move a little bit. And then I take both of my feet and I just put on their hip. Now, when I put it on the hip, I get my knees on the inside of their arms, and that kind of creates a spotter guard situation. And as I was explaining to you, you got to think of your body as in the box and out the box, right? So now you have control of all four of their limbs. Well, not really their legs, but you're controlling their hips, which is going to control their legs.
You got their hips pressed to the mat pretty much.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So they're going to, at this, even though it doesn't look like you have the dominant position, you do. You're in a control situation. So when I do this, I like to take one of my hands, put it on their shoulder. As I do this, I like to shrimp out just a tad to where I can get a butterfly guard with one foot. Then I kind of shrimp back in. As I'm shrimping back in, my other hand's going to leave the other sleeve, and I'm going to get a semi-deep cross collar grip. Now, as I go in to get back to my butt, that's when I use my leg, my butterfly, my leg that's on the hip to kind of push them out. As they go out straight, their neck's going to be open. They're going to be straightened out. I just sit up, loop choke their neck, and then if their arm's going to, 9 out of 10 times, is going to be straight out trying to base. You can just go ahead and weave your arm in, and then that's where you have a very tight loop choke situation.
Yeah, you're coming over the back of their neck with the other hand.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
Very dominant.
Nice. And then do you stay sitting up to finish that? Do you lay back?
I do. I actually, what I do is I don't just stay sitting up, but then I kind of shrimp out to the where my butterfly hook would be. I kind of shrimp to that side. That way I'm actually creating more force, and that's when it becomes an Ezekiel.
Right.
Okay. But this works no-gi as well. The only difference is you don't have a collar to grab, so you're gonna go into a deep guillotine in this situation. So then you go to your back and your side for your leg over, and then revert from there.
Then you're a little more dependent on them driving into you in that scenario. When they have the gi on, you can pull them to you.
Right.
Bit.
You can pull into them, but like anything, you can bait them to do that. I mean, let's be honest. Whenever you push into someone enough, it's going to want to push back.
Yep. It works good against bullies then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. Nice. Definitely.
So, I guess one of the things they can do to foil your attempt is if they're quick enough, they can kind of pop their head out and then start driving back into you again. What do you do in that scenario?
Well, man, I mean, there's a couple different things. If they are adamant about popping their head out or bracing and just not letting you get to that situation, what I like to do is just go grab the forearm and then just simple butterfly sweep from there.
Nice.
Simple butterfly sweep, and then, then you establish your top control, whatever fashion it may be.
Nice.
Worst case scenario, you can't land either. Just go back to your closed guard and then revisit what you want to do.
Nice. Sounds like that works really well. And this is something you've been playing with, live rolling? Having some success?
Yeah, I definitely do a live rolling. And look, a lot of times I may not get the submission, but it's definitely worked for me to where I can at least get somebody off of me. And then from there, if I got to go to a different position, I can, but it gives me enough threshold and enough breathing room because, I mean, jiu-jitsu is all about having that base on base. You got to have your body on somebody's body.
Right.
Once you give them room to move and this and that, that's when problems are created. And, it helps me.
Yeah. And if they don't pop their head out, but for whatever reason you didn't get the grip at the right depth and you can't finish, you can still sweep them with the head tucked.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
you could sweep them more. I mean, from there, if your your hand position is not right, but you do have it sucked in, all you got to do is kind of like creep your hand up a little bit.
Yeah. Make some adjustments. And
then worst case, if, like, let's say you got that tucked in and you don't think you have the submission, you could just roll them and get on top and then finish it.
Yeah, that's a nasty finish from the top.
Well, yeah. I don't know what you would really call it. That's like a white trash guillotine Ezekiel combo. It's brutal.
Yeah. So Shane, you have an interesting training routine in that you split your time fairly evenly between two different schools. Tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about your training routine.
Yeah, I mean, I push myself really hard. I'm 31 years old, and I just don't see myself stopping anytime soon. Life happens, don't get me wrong. But, man, I mean, with all the negatives in the world, this is my positive. It's my outlook. It's my escape. It's just something I love to do, and, I have a home gym, LaRose Martial Arts. I'm there 2-3 times a week. Definitely, I'm going to be there. It's where I started. It's where I'm going to plan on being. I don't plan on leaving that place anytime soon. We have a sister school in Houma, Blacklist BJJ. Derek Bro is the head instructor over there, and I mean he's always been welcoming. And we're all under Tim Crater, and I go over there, man, and they always welcome the doors, this and that. They do a pretty good kickboxing program there as well. So I get to get my kicks in and whatnot, learn some punches and strikes. They got a lot of guys that usually are getting ready for cage fights and whatnot. So we get to do some MMA and stuff like that. I tell you what, though, man, a lot of places in town, just like, I think pretty much anywhere in the States, it's very welcoming. That's the thing about, I think that's the main thing that blew me away with jiu-jitsu versus like any traditional art I had ever done, because like you couldn't go from one taekwondo school to the next. They would shun you out the door. You're like, whoa, man, what are you doing? And I tried that a couple of times. I'm like, hey, man, well, I got a competition coming up. I just thought it'd be nice to spar some fresh people. And they wasn't having it. Over here, it's like, oh, yeah, man, come in, get some training in. And it's like, that's beautiful. You come over from Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And you came to our gym and that was it.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing. I train with Shane at LaRose Martial Arts when I'm at work, and I've visited the other school multiple times. They're very welcoming. There's another school in Houma that's not associated with us.
Evolution.
Yeah, but they're friendly.
And, they let you in, man.
Yeah, it's a really good atmosphere here in Louisiana. So
the scene's blowing up down here, man. 10 years ago, there wasn't much. Jiu-jitsu was, pretty much non-existent. They had, I think Blacklist was open, pretty much like a garage school, but it was there at the time with Derek and whatnot, but it wasn't much, man. And it was all ran, this whole area was just dominated by just traditional martial arts. And I'm not knocking any of that, but, that's obsolete now.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Another thing I like to do in my training routine, I do lift a lot, more strength and conditioning type stuff. But, I do like to lift, keep my body in shape. I do like to push the mass sometimes. And it's not like I ever want to be like some beefcake bodybuilder by any means. But, I definitely have a physique and a build that I want to keep. So we'll keep doing that till my body falls apart. Also, what I like to do in the world of my grappling is, man, you always get, especially beginners, there's so much knowledge coming in at one time. It's so hard. Like, man, I don't know. I learned this. I learned half guard this week. Next week it's full guard. Next week is this, is that. How do you keep in contact? And like most people say, you just go with the flow till you start to really know what's going on. And I mean, that's good and all. But I started doing this as a blue belt. Every month I take a position, a submission, no matter what we're learning. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to just ignore what we're learning in class.
Right.
I'm still going to do those things, but I'm going to focus on, like, if we're learning full guard, but my position of the month was half guard. That's what I'm going to, and that's what I'm going to work on that month. Still going to take the knowledge of what we're learning in class, but that way it gives me a very systematic, simple approach to what I'm working on that whole month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
It works great.
Yeah, I like that. So before we go real quick, how long have I known you? 3 years?
Yeah, about three.
Roughly.
About three.
And you haven't been much of a competitor, and you weren't on the competition mats the first year or two, but you got on last year. You had a couple of super fights. You going to do some more coming up?
Oh, yeah. I've already put my name in the hat for the one that's coming up. They got a fight to win coming up next month. If I get on the court, great. If not, I will go support my team members and whatnot. But, man, I tell you what, I actually fell back in love with competing when, like, the first fight to win came to town, like, 2 years ago. And I got to see, all my buddies do it. And I'm like, man, I want that feeling. It kind of set a fire to me. And I was like, I'm going to do that. So, like, the following year, I mean, look, that year, I just work was rough, this and that. I kind of fell out of shape for a little bit. And then that next year, I just, like, something happened. I just clicked. I'm like, man, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to do this. And then, like, I got that first pro match, and I'm like, oh, man, I need to do it again. Then I started competing at the local tournaments and whatnot. And, man, it's just competition's great for everybody. I just always kind of felt, being that I've done martial arts so long, that I just didn't have anything left to prove to myself. I've competed so much, and, I guess you get burnt out on it in a sense. And everybody competes for different reasons. They got some people that compete for limelight. Some people compete to, for their self-ego, self-pride. But at the end of the day, regardless of what it is, it's always a good builder. Win, lose, whatever. You're always going to learn something when you get on that competition base and there's people watching you. And, man, it's a tough pill to swallow if you lose sometimes and whatnot. But, I mean, you got to get over that. It's a character builder for sure. And,
sure.
Man, I definitely see myself competing again. There's a Naga this weekend in New Orleans, and if work allows it, I might go compete at that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Sure, man. There's so many people.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. I think I just shouted out to everybody.
All right. So we got Buddy Kiff at LaRose Martial Arts.
Buddy Kiff, Derek Bro.
Yeah.
That whole squad. Gabe Barahona, it's another black belt from Blacklist. Cy Landry, which is a killer black belt.
Cy kicked my ass tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta picture this dude's 120 pounds, 5'3", just straight killer. Dude's so good at what he does. Man, I think that's what I love most about watching people compete or just walking into a jiu-jitsu school, right? Because, like, think about this, and I always tell people not to judge a book by its cover. A lot of times you get these meatheads that walk in, oh, this and that, and it's like, well, put him with somebody like Isidore, which looks like a little nerdy guy.
Yeah, he's what, 110,
120 pounds soaking wet, and he sweeps you, puts you on your ass, and it's like, well, let that be a lesson. Now, let's be honest, 9 out of 10 people won't come back. Yeah. But you get that one guy, and he's like, man, I need to learn this. Because that dude did that to me. What happens with someone my own size knows this shit. What happens?
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, man. It really is.
All right, Shane, thanks for coming on. This went well, and we'll see you on the mats tomorrow night, Wednesday night, sometime soon.
Awesome, man. Look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, those were some good interviews. Thanks, guys, for coming on. Really appreciate 3 different athletes and kind of 3 different ways of presenting their thoughts. And so I really appreciate you guys coming on. Look forward to seeing you on the mat soon.
Yeah, that was cool. And man, I'm impressed, Joe. 3 interviews in one BjjBrick Extra episode. That's cool. I like where you went with that, and the idea of having more than one person and kind of covering some of their favorite stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
I want to mention our sponsor one more time, Health IQ. If as a responsible adult, you need to actually have life insurance in case something bad happens to you. It's really money to help your family try to maintain a resemblance of a lifestyle that is what they're used to, I guess would be a way to say it, or help things progress to the next chapter in their lives without you. As depressing as that is, you have to have life insurance, especially if you're the main provider, but really everybody, because it is just it's such a tragic time in anybody's life to lose somebody that's important to them, to also be hit with any financial burdens. Money will make things easier and less stressful. So life insurance, it's a huge deal. If you don't have it, you need it. And even if you do have it, you're probably overpaying for it. Why are you overpaying for life insurance? Because you're not getting credited for the healthy lifestyle you're living. You train jiu-jitsu. You're on the mat. You're sweaty. You're training hard. You're getting better. You're treating your body well. You're eating right. Health IQ wants to reward you, much like you would get a lower rate for car insurance for being a good, safe driver. You are treating your body well. And although we get banged up a little bit, actually we're going to live longer because we're healthy. We have low blood pressure. We're fit individuals. Check out their website. There'll be a link in the show notes. It's that easy. Check them out. They'll save you money on your life insurance because you are a healthy person. Simple concept, great idea. Happy to have them as our sponsor. All right, gentlemen, I have a question here, and a lot of people ask this question, and it's basically the measuring stick question. How can I tell if I'm getting better at jiu-jitsu? And I think that's a frustrating feeling, especially when we're new. It just feels like you're not getting any better. You got there, you were terrible. 2 weeks goes by, you're terrible. 2 months go by, you still can't really tell that you're actually doing anything different than you did when you started. It's really a frustrating process, especially with the new people. How could you tell that you're getting better at jiu-jitsu?
Well, that's a good question, Byron. I guess part of the answer is you just got to stick with it long enough till you're not the new guy anymore. If you're paying attention in class, you're collecting some technique, you're starting to understand the concepts, eventually 6 or 8 months in, a new person will come in that's about your size and about your athletic ability, and then you'll be able to see it's working. In the meantime, I think you just have to trust your training partners when you're drilling, and if the move's going, if you're having some success with it and they say, I'm giving you a little resistance, then you're getting it, and you just got to be happy about that for the time being.
Yeah, and listen to your instructor and your training partners also. One thing we need to do as good training partners is we need to let our lesser training partners, our newer training partners, know when they're getting better, because they're not always going to know that. You could be at a school where everybody's trained 4 years minimum, and some new person comes in, and he's going to have a tough time with everybody out there. But as a training partner, if we see, little hip movements or hand placements or execute a move perfectly, we need to tell that person. We need to let him know. Your instructor is also there to let you know. He's going to tell you when he sees stuff that is going better, because, a lot of times it's you kind of sometimes almost you have to tap people out to a lot of people to justify them getting better, but that doesn't mean a tap has nothing to do with you getting better. There's a lot of stuff, just a little better shrimp or anything of that sort will show that you're getting better.
Yeah, and no matter what you're learning about these positions and these ideas that you probably didn't know when you walked in the door, I think that's a big part of the first little while at jiu-jitsu, is just kind of getting an idea of what you don't know, and that'll start to pile up. And like Joe said, when people come in less skilled than you, although you feel like you know nothing, it'll be a little easier than it would have been without your skill and knowledge that you've picked up so far. And really trust, look around the room. Everybody's good at jiu-jitsu. everybody does jiu-jitsu. Of course, it's going to be hard to do jiu-jitsu against those people. But you know what? They did the same process that you did. At one point in time, they were brand new. At one point in time, they didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu. And that's the boat you're in right now. They got off that boat onto the next one, or maybe the next one after that. And just know that you're going to follow in their same footsteps, do the same similar training that they've done, and you're going to be, moving right along downstream.
I'll tell you another easy way for people out there to find out if they're getting better at jiu-jitsu. Come train with me. I guarantee you'll have a good roll. You'll get a victory probably. So come train with me if you're south of Houston or in the New Orleans area. Let me know, and I'd love to train with you. And if you're up in Wichita, Kansas, hit up Gary and Byron and see if your jiu-jitsu is any good on the mats.
And Joe made a good point. It takes some time. You need to keep training. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Just stick with it. And on top of that, besides getting better at jiu-jitsu, you're getting better in life. You're making more friends. You're getting more flexible. We talked about health IQ there. You're getting, your blood pressure's probably getting lowered. Your cardio is getting a little bit better. You're working your heart. You're getting stronger. You're moving through range of motions. You're learning different body movements. Like how many people really knew how to do a proper forward roll before they started jiu-jitsu? So you're learning forward rolls. You're learning break falls. You're learning, all sorts of different positions that you had never done before. So you're making yourself not only a better jiu-jitsu person, you're making yourself more healthy, bit more agility, just a better person. So definitely keep going, keep training. Jiu-jitsu is the best.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. Jiu-jitsu is the best. If we found something better, we would be doing a podcast about that. We really appreciate the support we've had with this podcast. A lot of it has been with Patreon. Patreon's a website for people who make content like podcasts, artists, musicians, a lot of different things on there. But most people go to Patreon. They say, hey, this BjjBrick podcast, it's a lot of fun. I'm really getting a lot out of it. It's helping me get better jiu-jitsu. I'm really enjoying the process because of that. It's worth $1 an episode. It's worth $2 an episode. Sign up to be a contributor, and we'll send you a BjjBrick gi patch and a sticker to show our appreciation for that. Invite you to the private Facebook group. And really, with this event coming up, if you are on Patreon and you're able to make it to that event, we'll cover your cost for attending the seminar. We know that not all of our Patreon supporters will do that because, they're all over the world. And really, we have a really impressive international support on Patreon. I think we have more international supporters than we do in the U.S. But anybody who's able to support us on Patreon and come to the seminar, we'll be happy to cover your cost, provided you didn't sign up just the day before the seminar. Yeah.
So do it 2 days before.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of Wichita people signing up.
Man, we found a loophole.
And there will never be an episode after that because BjjBrick will have to file bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, that's how it's going to all end. At least we know how it's going to end. But, so if you want to help us out and check it out, there'll be a link in the show notes. It'll be right next to the link for our sponsor. A lot of stuff in there. Links to our social media as well. What do we have, Joe, for social media?
Yeah, if you want to help us out, you can't commit to Patreon and a little bit of money each week. You can still help us out by getting the word out. You can tell a friend. You can find us on social media, share some of our posts, like them, comment. I love it when we get interaction with the listeners on Facebook. So, yeah, we've got a Facebook account that's pretty active. Byron's on YouTube regular. Download the BjjBrick app. That's the best way to get an episode every week. And, check us out on social media, guys.
All right, you had a great time with the BjjBrick Extra episode. Looking forward to doing this the first week of next month. And, of course, we have our weekly show coming out as usual. Thanks, guys. This was awesome. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats, guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Definitely going to go bad. But, we were talking about staying safe. Staying safe is staying healthy. we'd like to.
That was good, Gary.
That was so good.
But then I didn't know how to change from there to get to Health IQ.